Hello. Are you unsure of the paperwork required for buying an investment property? You're not alone. Now, today we're diving into the 4 key documents you absolutely must understand to avoid common pitfalls and secure your investment confidently. Now, we're going to uncover the relationship guide, buyer representation agreement, purchase contract, and waiver, each a critical piece of the real estate puzzle. That's not all. Stick around till the end because I'm going to share a golden nugget that could save you thousands on your next investment. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel, Everything Real Estate. I am Tim Mangat, CIR Realty. Now, the first step in the paper process is the Consumer Relationship Guide. This guide explains the expectations for the realtor to you and you to the realtor. You, as the consumer, the realtor has certain responsibilities to you. Now, the 6 main responsibilities are undivided loyalty, confidentiality, full disclosure, obedience, reasonable care and skill, full accounting. When you entrust a realtor to work for you, you are basically going to get undivided loyalty. This realtor will put his best interest above his own to provide you the best service. Obviously, confidentiality. Anything you say to him will remain confidential, or her. Full disclosure. Obviously, the realtor will provide you full disclosure in anything that they're doing, and also make sure that you're well aware of any property that you see, and they will provide you all the information they know. Now, obedience. Obviously, a realtor will follow your lawful instructions, whether they agree or not. Reasonable care and skill. The agent will provide reasonable skill and care in their duties. They must meet a certain standard that you are expecting from a realtor. Full accounting. Any transactions that account for money or properties that they received on acting on your behalf will be put into the brokerage, and you will be fully aware of it. Now, most importantly, this is signed, and it's a contract that the 6 responsibilities of the agent to you will be provided. All right, next step is the non-exclusive buyer representation agreement. Now, this is a template created by the Alberta Real Estate Association. Really, it's just more expectations of knowing when you've hired a realtor to find you an investment property, what his expectations are and what your expectations are, and this is the contract. Okay, so let's just start off with right off the basics here. The agreement's going to be not with a realtor but with his brokerage. That's very important to know. So all the money and everything like that is sent to the brokerage, not to the realtor. Okay, so that's the agreement between you and the brokerage there. Next is, again, this is a template, so you're just typing in stuff. Search criteria is investment properties, market area Calgary, where I reside, and the brokerage assigned me Tim Mangat. Next, you do the date. So everything is the person who's going to help you with that, and the date as well. Typically, it's 3 months is a normal time for a time frame, but you can make that time frame anything like that. Now, the responsibilities of the brokerage is that the dealings with you must be really impartial in our dealings with you and other sellers represented by us whose properties you are interested in. Also, you take a look at this here. Supervise the designated agent support staff. Make sure their responsibilities are met. So the brokerage is telling you, we will look after you to the best of their abilities. Okay. Also, any money coming in will be put in trust. Now, now the brokerage has assigned me, Tim Mangat, that's who I put in, and these are my responsibilities, section 4. And these are just what we talked about in the Consumer Relationship Guide there, is that my duty is to look for properties that match your search criteria until you buy a property under the agreement of this, or if this agreement ends. Also, to keep you informed during the search and any resulting transaction. I will also tell you the seller of a property if you're interested, and that you're the agent. I'll take reasonable steps to find and give you information about properties and transactions you're interested in. I'll help you offer and negotiate favorable terms and conditions with the seller. Also, I will help you with comply with the purchase contract if the property is brought as property is brought through us. I will present all offers and counter offers to you from you, even when the property is already subject to an accepted offer. Basically, I will follow your lawful orders. Okay? And if you want me to do anything else, you put that in 5.1 there. Now, during your responsibilities, Section 6 is that you communicate and cooperate with the brokerage, okay? You discuss any specific information about a property that may include the information the seller does not disclose, or issues that may prevent you from buying a property. That's very important, okay? Also, you will need to provide personal and financial information so we can assess your ability to buy a property that matches your search criteria. That's important as well. Okay, now here is very important. This is where everybody gets a conflict of interest. It is not a conflict of interest if the designated agent simply shows a property owned by the seller they also represent. So meaning I could have my own property listing and I could show it to you. That's not a conflict of interest. The conflict occurs when the designated agent acts as a sole agent for you and the seller. In that case, they must tell you there's a conflict and you have the right to pick another agent. Okay, that's very important. Now, you're not responsible for any payments for our fee in any circumstances. Now, we are, as the broker, entitled to a fee if during the agreement you enter a legal binding contract and complete the purchase of the property that you were introduced by us, the brokerage, that matches your search criteria. Now, if any reason you wish to break this contract, that's okay. All you do is reimburse the expenses up to that point. Reasonable expenses will include $1,000. Okay. Now, also Section 9 is that any information you give is confidential and will not be disclosed to anybody outside of the brokerage. Okay. Obviously, there's ongoing obligations after this agreement ends. Now, for whatever reason, you agree that you will indemnify us and our brokerage for representing against all claims and legal actions that may arise because we reasonably and in good faith relied on information you gave us. That's it. Anytime you want to end this agreement, that's no problem. You just tell me you want to end the agreement and we cancel it, okay? You sign it here. So everything here, okay, the other stuff is, again, this always signed before the realtor starts showing you properties. Okay, once you sign, that's a signed agreement, and you can break it anytime. But it's to ensure what the agent's responsibilities are and what your obligations are to the agent. All right, now we have the most powerful document that's going to happen to the investor, the purchase contract. Now, this typically, when the realtors are taking the real estate course, this usually takes 2 or 3 days to cover the whole contract. I'm going to try to cover that in less than 10 minutes. I'm going to go over every item as much as possible. And of course, any more questions you have, you can just text me or contact me directly at Tim Mangus, CI Realty. Now, obviously, it's a template, and we're going to put in information that's relevant to the purchase you are going to buy. The first thing is you're going to buy a property, you're the buyer, and you're going to offer this contract, residential purchase contract, to the property owner. You're going to do the details first. First is obviously the address here, and then legal description, which you get from the title. That basically tells you, when you pull the title, it tells you the name of the person who owns that property and the title. The other thing that you want to include in your offer for the purchase contract is all the unattached goods. Unattached goods are basically described as where you don't need you don't really need basically tools to remove it. So what we have is things like fridges, stoves, dishwashers, window covering, washer and dryer. And I always put down the date we signed because some people will change it out before the closing date. So I always put that down there. Okay? And let's say there's some goods that you don't want to include, like lawnmower, barbecue, or anything like that. You would definitely put that down here. The most important thing here is that you're sending this to the seller. This is the purchase contract price I'm willing to pay you. Minus, there's no GST, which is because in Alberta, or even Canada, I don't know about Canada, but in Alberta, there's no GST for residential properties. We're talking about investment properties that are under 6 units here. Now, the one more important thing here is that this is the date you want, possession date. One important thing is that if there's tenant in there already, you want to cross out vacant possession. You just got to put a line out there because that will really hurt the contract there if you're asking for vacant possession. There's already tenants in there now. Now, general terms here, just basically general terms, any contract in Alberta, it's laws of Alberta. This contract's only for Alberta. Time is of the essence. Business days, Saturday and Sunday are not included. Material latent defect. Now, that very interesting here. Someone must disclose any material latent defect. Now, that is basically what they're saying is that, you got to get a property inspection in there. And even though the property inspection done is in there, the seller know that every spring the basement floods. That's a material latent defect. It's not reasonably visible. It's not upon a reasonable inspection, but it's a defect. If he does not disclose that and that happens, he's liable for the usual stuff there. Okay. Now, obviously, in every contract, the buyer and seller must do their own diligence there, and the seller always must provide RPR, real property report. That defines the boundary of the land title, and also defines if there's any construction that was done that was not defined or properly with proper permits there. Now, non-dire rights is basically when there's a husband and wife that own the property, but the wife is not on the title. Okay, and this is just the buyer always gets independent inspections. That's just the general terms here. Okay, nothing too amazing here. Some of the advanced stuff. The seller's brokerage will provide all the documentation. Documentation meaning purchase contract, waivers, RPRs, anything that relates to the property. First thing, to basically once this contract is done, and to firm it, make it a firm contract, a conditional contract, is that this owner must provide some sort of funds. The buyer must provide some sort of funds to the seller, usually in a deposit, which can be refunded if the conditions are not met and the buyer decides not to go through the property. That's the deposit. That's usually done within 3 business days once this offer has been accepted by the seller. Next, what we have is that this talks about, Section 4 talks about, deposits and what happens if there's no deposit, things like that, waivers and everything like that. One thing is Section 4.8 here, where if a condition is not satisfied or waived in accordance with Clause 8, the buyer voids this contract and basically the deposit is refunded. Okay? Land title here is that basically it just shows you, it just says that the title should be free of all encumbrance, any liens or interests. Okay, so when you pull the title, you shouldn't see a lien on it. You won't be able to purchase that property unless the lien is removed there. Okay, one of the most important things is obviously representation. The seller has a right to sell the property there, and the seller is not a non-resident for the purpose of income tax. General stuff during a contract was all laid out in Section 6 here. Okay. Again, the importance of material latent defect. Section 6.15, it talks about latent defect. It's that important. Okay. Okay. Now what we're going to talk about is the dower. That is basically when a spouse has dower rights. That means they're not on title, but they have rights to this property. Their signature must be obtained before this property can be sold. Now, the second most important thing, besides the price, is the conditions. What the buyer is saying, listen, I want to buy this property, but based on these conditions, I need to get financing, and I need a certain amount of time. That's all laid out, 8.2a. Then, of course, the buyer also wants a property inspection done, knowing they want to know what kind of condition they'll be getting the property. So property inspection usually takes 4 or 5 hours, done typically a week after this offer has been accepted. And depending on the property inspection, there's certain things will happen. Okay, that's the main thing here. The buyer has has time to do his due diligence and still tie it up, and no one else can. The seller can not accept another offer. That's the main thing. They call it basically tying it up there. Okay, and of course the seller can have conditions as well if they want, and that would be section 8.3. Done. So conditions is the term for that is that it's if the conditions are not met, the sale does not go through. If the conditions are met, the sale goes through. That's very important to know, because now we're on to terms. I've included a tenancy schedule here because you need to know what kind of the paperwork for the tenants there. Okay, so that'll be following this here. And the other terms I always put in is that you want to be the seller wants to be able to get in there at least 4 visits before closing date with 24-hour notice. That's for renovation purposes, things like measuring things like that, and also anything. It's nice to be able to go in there just to make sure. You can even take pictures for renting, things like that. So you may not need the 4 visits, but it's nice to have a term in there. A term means that yes, the property will go through, but the term means it's after that. The deal is not contingent on the term. Okay. And usually there's a cost associated, but something simple like that is that it's a yes or no, and it doesn't affect the closing of the property. All right, and now we're in the closing here. At the closing date, the money gets transferred into the seller, that sort of thing. There, usually it's by the lawyer's trust account there, and once the money's deposited, the buyer owns it, and he gets the keys as well. I'm being very general in this here because this is basically just general knowledge that you should know, and if any more detail you want, make sure I can send you a copy of this, or you can contact me. I can provide more information there. Okay. And this also talks about what if they're not able to close, then that goes in the lawyer's hands, and nobody likes to see that happen there. Okay. Insurance, obviously, the property needs to be insured before a mortgage can be obtained. Now, at the bottom is there. I'm going to go right to the bottom here. This contract is only valid for a certain amount of time. So now this buyer is offering this terms and conditions to the seller. Basically he'll get 2 or 3 days up to March 10th, 4 p.m. So this contract is valid up to that date. Any date when you put it in here, after that, this offer is expired. You put there. Now, when the seller does accept, they will sign it here. Okay, they'll put all the information there. Once that's done, this is a firm contract. Once the deposit is done, if no deposit is done, it's null and void. All right, I hope that helps a little bit for the purchase contract. Next, what we're going to do is move on to the tenancy schedule, which is basically you just want information on the tenants that are already living there. That's a big difference between a residential contract and investment property. Here, tenancy schedule, we always include it. Have the seller fill all this out here: tenant information, lease information, walkthrough information, deposits, that sort of thing there. So you will, when you're assuming a tenant, you have all the information. Okay, basically, I hope that helps. And now, with this paperwork, you will have purchased an investment property. All right, now we come to the last piece of document before the deal becomes firm. This is called waiver of the conditions. Now, when you put the purchase contract and you did put some conditions in, this notice is letting the seller know you're satisfied with the conditions and you're waiving them, therefore making the deal firm. All right, let's just review what this document is all about. Obviously, the first thing is you need to associate it with the contract. So that investment property 1, that's the contract you're associating this document with. And you put the owner's name in there, the seller, and your information as well. What you're saying is you're telling the seller you are satisfied with the conditions. The first one was financing. the bank, you verified with a bank that you need to borrow so much money, and the bank is verified. They will lend that much money against this property. And they give you a written documentation for that, so you can waive that. Next, what you did was you inspected the property, and property inspection came back that it is in good condition and it's satisfactory. So you're going to waive that as well. Now, just in case you have other conditions as well, you could have conditions such as, removal of all garbage. That's got to be there. Just conditions that have to be satisfied before the deal goes through. Terms is different. Terms is a whole different aspect of it, but conditions, they have to be satisfied before the deal can go through. Now, what you'll do, once you've signed it, the date and the time or everything like that, once you signed it, that now is telling the seller you are committed to buying this property at a later date. Okay, that wraps up all the documentation required to buy an investment property.